just got done watching Tales of the Jedi, and this is going to be a non-spoiler review for the brand new short-storied animated Star Wars series that, well, tells stories of the Jedi. It tells stories and showcases animated shorts that feature Jedi from the prequel area. Some of this takes place right before Phantom Menace, some of this takes place during it, as well as even continuing into Clone Wars saga, maybe a little bit after that. Now, Clone Wars fans should absolutely, and when I say this is shockingly a must-watch for Star Wars fans, specifically ones who loved the Clone Wars, which is me. That's personally my favorite thing that Star Wars has ever done in TV light. And Tales of the Jedi is a great addition to that, kind of acting as a prologue and an epilogue to certain story arcs that we saw throughout the Clone Wars, and just in general stories that we have heard of before within the Star Wars lore. I'll be doing a spoiler ranking of all the episodes later today, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for a little bit more of that, as well as comment down below your guys' thoughts. Are you guys excited for this? Are you not? I know a lot of us kind of rolled our eyes when we saw, oh, another Ahsoka story, and I'm saying that as like the die-hard Ahsoka fan. Ahsoka's my favorite Star Wars character, so that's saying a lot. I wanted something a little bit different here. And what I got here, and what I will say, is that the stories they told here, in particular with one that we see from the trailers, of course, is Count Dooku. We get a lot of development with him, seeing before he went to the dark side and a little bit leading into there. Now, I'm going to stay a little bit vague on that part because I don't want you guys to be spoiled on that, but the developments leading into there give us revelations of certain character deaths that we really never even thought about or heard about, and maybe have been changed a little bit in the canon-wise, but it never really bothered me because it fit for the story context. Because from what I understand, this is the story that would fit a little bit better into the context of what's going on in Star Wars and George Lucas's story. That's where I actually want to start this review and really come about to saying that this is a perfect show. When you're looking at short storytelling and you're telling anthology stories, it is a perfect way to do it. I have things that I would rather want, and speaking about those wants, I think this is a great piece that, again, is to Clone Wars, and I think for people who love that era and wish we could have seen more in the prequel series, specifically in this time period, this is right up your way. And I love the storytelling. They do go to dark places when they need to do, and when it comes down to the only issues I have, I wish it was just longer. I think you could tell, say, a whole season. Look at House of Dragons. You could do a whole season of storytelling on one character that you want to focus on during this time period and get that all out of the way for one season, like a 10-episode season, and give that development. And continue to do that and even touch on other characters. Like, if you wanted to do Ahsoka, that would be fine. You could focus on some of the first stuff as a childhood, maybe even some more training stuff, and specifically kind of bridging that arc between Rebels and the end of Clone Wars, which we do get to see a little bit in here. Now, talking about that, the big standout of this all is the Dooku stuff. Count Dooku is one of the most fascinating characters for me, and that's not just because Christopher Lee absolutely did an amazing job playing him in the movies, but I've always loved Count Dooku's mannerisms, and there's so much to him because, you know, his apprentice was Qui-Gon Jinn. So there's those elements that you've always wanted to be intersected with, and when it comes out of the movies, I mean, personally, Count Dooku's not really in the movies at all. He's in, you know, Revenge of the Sith for a little bit, he's in Attack of the Clones for a little bit, but a lot of his development truly comes from the Clone Wars series, and also adding in Tales of the Jedi now. Tales of the Jedi shows and really much deconstructs this character, showing to where he first actually felt the dark side, and when the dark side actually came into his life and changed it, as well as leading into what was that final moment that really led him in there. And that's where I go as far as say, I wish we had 10 episodes of that, because I think the deconstruction of that was fascinating. But for what we got in here, I thought it was perfect. And now going back to rewatch Clone Wars or see, you know, him in the movies, I'm going to get a different perspective of Count Dooku himself. Because there are a lot of cool elements to that character, and specifically the way that you kind of come to understand him a little bit more, and maybe why he did that. And you kind of see, you know, there's a pro and a con to that all, of what the Jedi believed in, what the Sith believed in. And Dooku, for the most part, you can understand why he would go to this dark side, even though it wasn't the best thing in the way to do, and there was another manner that could have been happened here. And that's what I love, specifically in the way that it parallels to different Jedis that we follow throughout here. Again, Dooku being one of them, also being Ahsoka, who we also see throughout here. And if you follow her story in Clone Wars, this is where it gets a little bit messy, and I'll say this, you know, as a giant Ahsoka fan, I found her episodes to be the more lackluster ones. I personally would have preferred just more Dooku in this, but if we're looking at what we got from Ahsoka, you know, you see in the trailers, you get to see her as a child, you get to learn a little bit more about her mother, kind of where she was raised at. I wanted a little bit more from that. But the two other episodes with her, one centers on something of a training and how that training may tie into why she's so damn good, but also some of the stuff that happened at the end of the Clone Wars season 7. At the same point, the last episode that features her is an episode that kind of shows why she came back to the rebellion. And it's an interesting one, in fact, that I liked, but when you look at the parallels, I can kind of see what they were trying to do with her and Dooku and why they decided to tell the story. It just feels a little bit jarring, to be honest, in the way that they kind of released the episodes, at least as it was from the press screening. I'm not sure how they're going to put it on Disney+, but they start with the Ahsoka baby episode, then they do all these Dooku episodes, then they go into the rest of the Ahsoka episodes. A little bit weird in that part. I kind of wish they would have just done Ahsoka, Count Dooku. I think it would have fit a little bit better for the pacing, but overall, I like what they did here. In fact, I think this is a fantastic piece of Star Wars animation that I think if you are a big, diehard fan of Clone Wars, this is like right up your alley. It gives you new perspectives on Ahsoka, but it also gives you new perspectives specifically on Count Dooku, and that is where I think it is the most fantastic part about this, and why I hope Tales of the Jedi continues to further out characters like this. I think there's unique ideas and perceptions that you can do on that you don't have to be like, oh, let's do a Count Dooku live-action spin-off on Disney+. No. I think animation is where this can thrive and work. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see a prequel era Disney Plus show again, but if this is the closest we're going to get, this is the way that you can kind of use this to tell new stories in the Star Wars universe that expands old characters. And again, as a companion piece to Clone Wars, when you go back and finish Clone Wars next, you're going to want to go back and finish Tales of the Jedi again and watch this and be like, man, I have a whole different perspective of when it comes down to Count Dooku, because again, the stuff you see in here is brilliant. And the animation, stunning. The score in one part, specifically with Count Dooku, was excellent. Kevin Kiner always does an amazing job with this. And I loved one of the lightsaber duels we got in here. It was quite awesome. And even the way that this whole entire series ended just feels like a perfect tie-up of it all. It's like Dave Filoni wanted to truly make something that was like, hey, don't forget about these storylines. I have more stories to tell, and while it can't be within Clone Wars, I think, again, this is a great companion piece to it. And Star Wars Tales of the Jedi is shockingly a must-watch for Clone Wars fans. It's as good as peak Clone Wars. The highest praise I can give the show, though, is the deconstruction of Count Dooku. We see an area of his life and a viewpoint missing before the Clone Wars that adds much to this incredible character, and I was thoroughly impressed with that. Again, Ahsoka, I loved seeing her, a little bit more of her, but I wish this was just more of a deconstruction on Count Dooku. I think that would have been the better light to take this in. So with all that said, I'm going to give Star Wars Tales of the Jedi a B+. Thank you once again, guys, for watching this. You guys are really all the best. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts, and of course, until next time, may the Force be with us all.